This is Salam Radio, Peterborough's Muslim community radio. Broadcasting on 106.2 FM and online.
Assalamu alaikum. This is your very own Dr. Shabina Asad Qayyum for Salam Radio 106.2 FM. And guess what, guys? It's the Body, Health and Mind show, broadcasted every Monday at 8 p.m. Well, it's a delight to be back on this absolutely glorious day that's followed an absolutely glorious weekend full of beautiful, beautiful sunshine. And I don't know about you, but I certainly feel as if the sun really does lift your spirits. And my goodness, haven't we just been waiting for it? All this wonderful sun to peek out, the flowers are blossoming, people are happy. And I was sharing with a colleague just today, earlier on, I don't know what it is about the sunshine, but you automatically see people more lifted, they look a lot more upbeat, and I start smiling as if, you know, there's nothing to smile for, but I just automatically smile because I think it's the right thing to do. Well, my name's Dr. Shabina Asad Qayyum. I am a GP based in the city of Peterborough, and I'm biased when I say that I work at probably the best practice in Peterborough at Bretton Park Medical Centre. I love doing my job, and to top it all off, I love having the opportunity to speak to you on the Body, Health and Mind show here on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. So we're going to go through the regular drill, and I'd love you to get in touch with me by calling on 01733 602 133, or you can text us on the WhatsApp number, which is 07411 191062. And you can comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, X, or Twitch. Now, without further ado, as you know, I try to bring to you the shows that are pertinent either when they've got something to do with the world of health or something that's trending, really, something where there's a need identified. And over the past year, I've been hosting some wonderful, wonderful people that have come onto the show talking about the whole aspect of fostering. Now, sometimes when we talk about certain elements, we do think that there might be a certain area of stigma attached to the title, and this radio station tries to negate some of those taboo issues. So we've spoken about domestic violence in the past, and we've had guests from Peterborough Women's Aid come on board. We've spoken about other things as well, some gynecological problems which women don't often speak openly about. One of the other things that we've had quite a few shows on is about the whole aspect of fostering within the Asian and the Muslim community. And it's been a delight to have guests from the local authority at Peterborough City Council and local councillors who are corporate parents as well, to talk about where there is a need, why is it that we haven't had an uptake of very many children within the Muslim community offering themselves to be potential foster parents. And it's advertised really widely. So we've thought that having a continuity of these shows, number one, to create a bit of awareness, and also to reach out to people, to give them the option of fostering, because it can be such a gratifying role. And for that, I'm joined by absolutely two wonderful people. We first of all have Catherine from Peterborough City Council, who's part of the fostering team. Hello, Catherine.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for having me.
It's wonderful to have you. Thank you very much for being here. And we also have Councillor Noreen B, who is a councillor for a ward within Peterborough City Council called North Ward, and is also a corporate parent. Good evening, Noreen.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me.
It's lovely to have you as well. Now, the last time we had you here, we spoke about how the whole process was coming along. It's probably been more than 6 months to a year since we last initially met each other, when the aspect of fostering was so very new, both to our radio show and both to our communities. How far, Catherine, do you think we've come since that first show that we had?
I mean, I think the thing is, the awareness has definitely increased. There's a lot more people that are saying, oh, I've seen posters or I've seen leaflets, I've seen things out and about. And, you know, part of my role is really to make sure that that continues, so that we're creating what we call those touch points between people, and making sure that, you know, there is literature out there, they know how to contact us and how to get in touch. So yeah, it's an ongoing project, obviously, but yeah, we're making good progress, I think.
That's wonderful. Yeah. That's wonderful to hear. And Noreen, tell me a little bit about your experiences. Obviously, this was something that was a very new topic. You delved into it head first. I'm so pleased to see that actually you've been spearheading it from a role model perspective in the Muslim community, especially being a female and a mother to children herself. How do you think this journey, where do you think it's taken you in terms of the service and the benefit to the service? What changes have you seen since you first came on to meet us?
It has been a very a delicate and a difficult situation or a subject. But I think we're really thriving at the moment. We are gaining a lot of inquiries, which I'm sort of obviously signposting to Catherine and her team. And obviously, I'm sort of really grateful that the Asian community are approaching me to ask some questions. And it's going really, really well. I think we've got quite a few people in the pipeline as well who have actually signed up and are in the process of being registered.
That's wonderful to hear. So some real positives that are coming out of this whole service, that very little, I mean, I'll be honest, when I, as somebody who's quite entrenched within the community, at first when Noreen approached me about the show, I must admit that I thought, I've never actually thought of this before as a topic. And what a wonderful thing it was to host a show. And I'm looking now, we've got some people who have generated some questions. We've already got some questions on board, which is great.
I'm on the spot tonight then.
Ooh, hopefully it should be. So we have Mr. Adil Shabir, which is wonderful. Very welcome to you. And my personal heartfelt hello to Sister Noreen B, which is wonderful. And he'd like to ask a question. What are fostering agencies doing for people who cannot speak and write English? That's quite an important one. Not everybody has English as a first language. They have a different mother tongue.
Yeah, that is obviously a challenge for us, because, you know, we don't want anyone to feel excluded. And as a Peterborough City Council, you know, we are equal opportunities, open to all, and we welcome everyone, obviously, from all different cultural backgrounds and ethnicities, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to raise that awareness. So it is quite a difficult one, because it depends on the children that we are matching and obviously what their needs are. So we have to look at that very carefully. Where there's languages involved, then we will obviously try our best to make sure that people understand the process, and make sure people understand, you know, what is happening throughout the sort of journey to becoming a foster carer. But yeah, it's quite a difficult one for us to manage, and it's something that, you know, we are looking at how we maybe reach some of those things, you know, and whether we have different leaflets printed in some different languages. At the moment, all of our literature is predominantly in English, but in the future, and it might be something that we can obviously look at to see if there's any scope to, you know, produce different versions of things. I think the difficulty is that a lot of the responsibilities as a foster carer is actually sort of attending meetings and being a voice for the child as well, and predominantly those meetings will be English. So it is important to have quite a good level of, you know, spoken and written English, because not only do we have to think about how people converse with children, but it's also how they converse with the professionals as well. And with being Peterborough City Council, most of us will predominantly conduct those meetings in English. So there does need to be a good level of of spoken and written English?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant question, and the answers are wonderful because you are very open and actually very clear on what is required. And coming from that, obviously there are organisations or platforms that are associated with those children as well. You've got their schools, for example, so
Exactly.
you will
Yeah, of
need,
course.
whichever parent is in charge, becomes a foster parent, will need to actively engage with
Yeah.
a school surrounding that child's needs or education. You know, there are so many facets that one doesn't think of. So I think that was a really good question.
Yeah,
And
really good question.
yeah, and the other question is that what do potential foster parents do if they work during the day?
Okay, so when we look at what people can offer in terms of availability and suitability, we have a look at their working patterns, for example. If people work full-time, it might be that school-aged children would suit them. So what we try and do is we try and approve everyone for 0 to 18 with a preference for a particular age, because not everyone is going to be able to look after newborn babies, for example,
Yeah.
because if you are working full-time, then obviously it's quite a big commitment. So what we do is we do quite a sort of thorough initial information gathering telephone call at the start. So that's with myself, just to get a picture of what might work for potential foster carers, and whether that's a single person or whether you're applying with a partner. We have a look at all those circumstances and we try and see if there's something that could fit what your current commitments are.
Yeah.
A lot of people that work full-time might be able to offer what we call respite care.
Yeah.
So that's not actually looking after children on a full-time basis, but it's maybe helping out in school holidays, weekends, things like that. You know, if their main carer was to fall unwell, we have respite carers that can sort of step in and help. So there are lots of options, and we will discuss that thoroughly with inquirers when they contact us.
Yeah, well, that's nice and concise as well as to what the expectations are. Mr. Shabir has sent quite a few questions, which I hopefully will address. We do have at least on average about 20 minutes left until the end of this half of the show. But Noreen, I just wanted to bring you in really and say that whilst you've been working with the local authority and with parents as well who want to be potential foster carers, have you come across the children being a corporate parent as well? And what's your experience being in touch with these parents, or do you not have that interface?
Only on meetings. Other than that, we don't have much of that. But I mean, that's all I could say at the moment. But I mean, as we go along, I think we will hopefully come into that as well soon.
Yeah, which is great. And I'm sure that you see often Councillor Dennis Jones, who is one of our more, I would say, famous corporate parents, because he talks, walks, corporate parenting, promotes it. He absolutely loves it, you know, and talking about the gratification behind being a corporate parent, how satisfying it is to the soul. I'm sure that you feel the same way when you see those children that are in need of a loving home.
Absolutely. I can't describe the feeling. I mean, it's just, you have to just imagine they're like your own children, and how you, if you want something happen to you, you want you would like your own children to be treated. And the response is just overwhelming at the moment, and I can't thank everyone enough, and especially the female sisters, and even the brothers have actually chipped in and saying, they'll do whatever they can. And like I was just saying to Catherine when we just walked in, it has actually been busy, because I was in a wedding this Sunday and a lady approached me. I emailed Catherine last night, and this was only on Sunday everything happened.
Wow.
And she's actually going to see us soon this week as well.
Oh, that's
so people
really
are
good.
aware of it, but and I think now it will get busy, and we are arranging more sessions, not just on Salam Radio, but in other community centres as well, where we will be having face-to-face questions and answers surgeries as well.
Wonderful. That's lovely to hear. It really is. Catherine, what I'd like to ask you before we go on to Mr. Shabir's remaining questions is, has the number of children from the Muslim community grown for who are up for fostering, or has it stayed static since we met a year ago, or would you say it's more or less the same?
I think it's quite a difficult one because with fostering it changes all the time.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be a different trend, and it could be that sometimes we have lots of newborn babies that need placing. Sometimes then we need lots of homes for teenage children, and that's the same with backgrounds and ethnicity. You know, predominantly the children that are in care in Peterborough City Council are white British children, but there are obviously some from the backgrounds as well, which is what we're trying to do in raising that awareness to try and make sure that we are matching as sensitively as we can, because obviously we want to make sure that children that follow particular faiths are integrated into household where that is common practice, because it makes them feel more welcome, and it makes them feel more comfortable, and it helps with that transition period as well if they've got some familiar sort of surroundings.
Yeah. I guess I always remember to ask this question at the end of every show, and I think, I should have asked this. But do you actually have any refugee children that are up for fostering or not as yet?
I believe we do get some. I don't have the exact figures on that, but I believe that there are some that come through, and we do obviously receive referrals. We have a placement team that coordinates all the referrals. So when we get notification that children need a safe home, then our placement officers will look at who can help, and they're the ones that are responsible for matching.
Okay, well, that's really interesting, because I often did think that sometimes, there are children here who I see in my day job, actually. I speak to some sheltered accommodations or people where there is accommodation where such children who come over as refugees and are torn away from their family come here, and they're teenagers, possibly under the age of 16. And I can remember a particular teenager who was mute because he had been through the shock of, and it just occurred to me that would they be placed in fostering, or would they have their own sort of accommodation that would look after them? So yeah, that's what came up. But yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you very much. Now, before we go to the end of the show, I think it's really important that we answer some of these questions that Mr. Shabir has asked. So one of the questions is, how long do DBS checks take?
Well, the actual DBS checks are part of the fostering assessment process. So once you've applied to become a foster carer with us, then we ask for references from people. So we ask for personal referees and maybe an employment reference, or somebody that's known you for a long time would be a good person to give a reference to. With the checks, it's not actually myself that does that part, but that is done within the fostering assessment. And so the social worker who is undertaking the assessment will ensure that the DBS checks are done. So that's obviously for everyone over 18 in the household. So the potential foster carers have to be checked. And then if there's any adult children in the house as well, then obviously they would need a DBS check. But all of that sort of comes under the whole assessment process. So I don't actually know how long the single part of it takes, but what we aim to do is approve people within 4 to 6 months of inquiring. Yeah. So when people sort of get in touch and say, we want to become a foster carer, from that point, we say around 4 to 6 months for the whole process.
Yeah, but that seems like a good sort of average to have a look at. It also depends upon how many addresses you've changed and how many people are in the household.
Exactly, there's lots of circumstances. Sometimes checks can be very quick, but if there's lots of information to go through, then obviously that takes a little bit of time.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. And before fostering children, can help be given if the house needs maintenance? So is payment given for that at all? Do we know towards any maintenance if a family has been approved for fostering?
In what sense? Sorry, I'm not sure.
I'm assuming that what Mr. Shabir is asking, before fostering children, if the house needs maintenance, so if it's not up to scratch, say it needs a lick of paint or something, it looks a bit dreary and drab, would the council pay cost towards any maintenance or upkeep of the property?
As part of our sort of initial inquiries, one of the things is to have a look at the home conditions. If there was anything that we thought needed addressing before people could progress to potentially the next part of the fostering stage, then we would suggest that, you know, what they need to do in order to get the home maybe up to scratch. If it was very minimal things like, you know, like cosmetic things like paint and things like that, I don't think we would be able to fund things like that, because if we do that for everyone, then obviously that's another cost implication.
Yeah.
And because we are obviously a local authority,
Yes.
we need to be careful about how we spend that money. But we can always discuss with you, you know, what exactly would be needed to get the home to an adequate condition. If it is minor things, then, you know, we will always discuss with people in full what we recommend. But if it is also just very minor, then it's very unlikely that would deter somebody from progressing to the next stage anyway.
Yeah.
What we're looking at on the home visit is the size of the spare bedroom that's available. Is it enough to have, you know, a bed and make personal for a young person? So things like neutrally decorated rooms are always quite a good idea, because then it's easy to make personal for either a young boy, young girl, or, you know, it just depends on how they want to make it their own, really. So we look at things like that. If there was quite a lot of things in the home that needed to be done, we would probably be thinking, is this the right time to progress somebody? Because we have to be very strict about how we adhere to the fostering standards, and we have guidelines on things like home conditions, but all of that is fully explored in initial visits.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Obviously, because you can't. Somebody says, no, I want an extra bedroom to accommodate this child. It's not like you'll go building one for them, or an ensuite. You wouldn't want, so we've got to be sensible about these things. Noreen, I'm going to come to you now. With helping raise awareness in the community, have you ever felt the urge to become a foster parent yourself? I know how busy you are already. I must say, after having 4 kids, I'd love to be a foster parent, but I don't think I'd be able to afford the time.
You've put me on the spot now. I'll be honest with you, I've always wanted to foster. And actually, Catherine, I'm being assessed this week. I'm going ahead with it myself as well.
That's amazing.
So, I've always wanted to do this, and I think now is the right time to do it.
That's wonderful. Well, you know, when we have another show, it would be wonderful if by that time you're placed. I'd love to know how you felt, you know, the experiences, because it comes, every placement obviously does come with its adjustment period, I would imagine, and how you've addressed those different adjustments. I think that would be a really lovely conversation to have. So watch this space, especially with yourself. It would be great, and well done. It's great. So I think that we might all follow suit if you do that as well. So it'd be good to see. Now, another question's come through. How old do you have to be in order to foster?
There's no upper sort of age limit, but you do have to be 21 or over, and you do have to have a spare bedroom.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that seems nice and easy. And once successful, do the children get free school meals?
I think children are entitled to free school meals in some circumstances anyway, so I'm sure that is possible. I don't know exactly. I don't have children myself, so I'm not actually sure
what
the rules and regulations are. But I'm sure that there would be provisions, for things like that. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So that would be on the basis of assessment as well. And Well, hello, Mr. Jason McNally. We have Mr. Jason McNally, who's a good friend of Salam Radio. It's wonderful to have you on board. Thank you very much for joining. Now, we are entering the last probably 1.5 minutes. And there were lots of other questions, things like after being fostered, do children get asked about how the parenting is going? If a child comes from a traumatic experience, how do fostering agencies cater to their needs? Obviously, you'd be signposting them to the relevant professionals, like probably GPs or schools that have got agencies like United that look after mental health. You've got the school nurse as well, and all of that as well. Yeah. You've got a minute. I'd love you both to give a snippet of a message to those people out there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, anyone that's interested or has any more questions, then just get in touch. Obviously, I'm the recruitment officer for Peterborough City Council, so I'm always happy to hear from people. And there's no pressure to proceed. If you just want to find out more information, ask questions, then you can do. We do have a new telephone number for the inquiry line, so Peterborough 868686, nice and easy to remember. So if anyone does want to call, then please do just get in touch. And, you know, it might just be that one question that you've been thinking about for a while and you just want to know. So please, just get in touch and we can help.
Well, thank you very much, both of you, for coming on board. It's 4 seconds, and look forward to speaking to you in the future.
For the top pizza in Peterborough, visit Top's Pizza, established in 1988 for delicious pizzas with freshly made dough daily. View the extensive and mouthwatering menu online at topspizza.co.uk, then choose from traditional tasty toppings, something different, or create your own with fresh 100% halal meats, salads, veg, and a great choice of sides too. Call into Top's Pizza, 52 Broadway, PE1 1SB. Call 01733 913 775 or order online for delivery or collection.
Attention foodies! Discover a world of flavours at Pack Foods, the largest ethnic supermarket in Peterborough. Shop our vast selection of authentic ingredients from around the globe, including spices, marinated fish and meats, and exotic fruits at incredibly low prices. And the best part? We offer free parking. No more hunting for a spot. Come visit us today and explore the incredible range of flavours at Pack Foods, 232 Lincoln Road.
Satisfy your cravings at Ibrahimi Buffet Restaurant. Enjoy a tantalising variety of Chinese, Italian, Pakistani and comfort food favourites, from starters to desserts. Kids under 5 dine for free, so bring the whole family to our location at 63 Sycamore Avenue. Open every day from 5 p.m. till 10:30 p.m. Call us on 01733 313131 or book online to reserve your table. Ibrahimi-restaurant.co.uk. Every bite is a delight at Ibrahimi Buffet Restaurant.
Masterminds Tuition Academy is for your high schoolers, your something to provers, your subject strugglers and keen learners, your brave jumpers and fist pumpers. Affordable personalised learning plans are delivered through our centres in schools across Peterborough. But not to worry, we also provide online and home visits with flexible timings. Whether it is maths, English, science or 11+, Masterminds is a must. Find us on all socials and visit our website, mastermindstuitionacademy.com, or call us on 07516 166 003. Masterminds, master the matrix.
2020 World Buffet is inspired by the best foods from around the world. See our teppanyaki chefs grill your food to order, or choose delicious Indian, Italian, Chinese, Mexican dishes and British favourites, all halal. 2020 World Buffet offers you unlimited food at a set price. Open 7 days for lunch and dinner. Catering, wedding and party services available too. Call 01733 566 320 or visit 2020buffet.co.uk. 2020 World Buffet, 35 New Road, Peterborough, PE1 1FJ.
Whether you visit the Berry Furniture Showroom at 78B Fengate in Peterborough or view and buy online, you'll be amazed at the quality and style you could enjoy in your home. With beds from just £299 and complete 321 sofa sets from less than £1,000, you'll also be amazed at their wholesale prices too. Plus, there's a 1-year free warranty on sofas and beds, subject to conditions. Find out more, click on Berry, that's BERRE furniture.co.uk, or call 01733 300 517.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the second half of the Body Health and Mind Show on Salam Radio 106.2 FM. It is absolutely wonderful to have the amount of engagement that we've had on the show regarding fostering. I'd really like to thank all of you. So first of all, thank you very much to Mr. Adil Shabir for those wonderful questions. And I think what we'll do for you, Mr. Shabir, is endeavour to get some of those questions answered so that you have, because they're very good questions, actually, they really are. And Mr. Fiaz Rasool, thank you very much for joining and tuning in. It's wonderful to have you on board. And also Prince Qasim Javed, thank you very much for joining. And also Jason McNally and Mr. Mohammed Rizwan. Wonderful to have your presence here on the Body Health and Mind Show about a really important topic, and especially with reference to the Muslim community. Both that there is a shortage, obviously, of parents within the Muslim community offering their services for adoption, and also for children who are of ethnic minority background and of a faith-based background, and that some of the challenges that Peterborough City Council has to place such children with a family that ideally fits their needs, both religiously and culturally. And I think that's very important, because when children do grow up, it's often, though we live in a hugely diverse city, which is such a blessing, but we often don't really concentrate much on the relevance that a spiritual or religious faith or a cultural aspect of a child plays in their life and growing up. And doing this show, I'm going to quote my dear mother, who often says to me, back home, you have whole communities, you have combined family systems. And my mum would always say to me, because I grew up in a very big family, actually, my dad's brothers and sisters, when we all lived together up north. And my mum would always say to me that it takes a whole village to raise a child and a whole family to raise a child. And that's very true in the Muslim community, that we have large families, the cultural aspects of which are very important in bringing up a child, and also the religious aspects as well. And there are some huge positives to gain from those kind of setups. So yeah, lots of thoughts for those that are listening today to take away. So I'm really grateful for the engagement that you've had on the show. But one thing I'm going to be talking about in the second half of the show, which I think many people are suffering from nowadays, or indeed I'm getting quite a lot of patients now that are coming forwards with these symptoms, are symptoms of hay fever. And my goodness, the number of people that are coming forth with various symptoms, everything ranging from itchy, watery eyes, inflamed eyes, running noses, congestion, nasal congestion, just watery noses, and in some cases breathing difficulty, sneezing, because the pollen count is high. And why wouldn't it be? I mean, look at the beautiful sunshine and all the flowers blooming everywhere. So I have a lot of patients who talk about hay fever and their allergy symptoms, and you read so much about it all. So hay fever, what is it? I used to suffer from huge symptoms of hay fever that used to set me back, affect my activities of daily living, and I had to address it. And I will say this, I take an antihistamine throughout the year, because come hay fever season, I know I won't be affected. And I sit here, I'm able to breathe through my nose, I'm able to talk to you, I don't make a mess of my eyes. There used to be a time where I used to itch my eyes so much that the jelly part of my eye, known as the conjunctiva, used to spill out. It used to be so bad. So I don't want any of that to happen to you. So it's important that we talk about, first of all, what hay fever is and what hay fever symptoms are. So obviously it's an allergy to hay pollens, and pollen is the name given to the fine powder that comes off flowers. You can also get pollen that comes off the growth of rapeseed. There's a lot of rapeseed that is grown within our parts here, within Cambridgeshire, and you get a lot of pollen coming off that as well. But grass pollen is actually the most common type of pollen that people are allergic to, and you will often see a spate of people that initially get allergic reactions or hay fever symptoms in the earlier part of the spring, and then their hay fever symptoms will go, and then you'll see a wave of people that have hay fever symptoms around about this time in May, and that's when the most pollen occurs, because you've got flowers in full bloom. It's just the peak of spring going into summer. The grass is green, everybody's getting out their lawnmowers, so you've got all of that grass pollen in the air that's dissipating and entering people's airways. So this is the peak pollen season, I usually say, and it causes something known as seasonal allergic rhinitis, because rhinitis means a runny nose, seasonal means it comes at a particular season, and allergy means that yes, you've actually got an allergy to pollen. So in this case, it would be grass pollen. So what are the symptoms? So it doesn't cause a high temperature. It can usually and very often does cause horrible sneezing. In fact, such relentless sneezing that you don't know what's hit you. So that's one of the things that hay fever causes. It also can cause running of the nose. It can cause congestion and headaches, and sometimes the sinuses and the throat can be affected. So you might see people, or if you suffer from hay fever, you might consistently want to itch your throat. Sort of, you scratch the inside of your throat, you might have a tickly feeling, and that's part of hay fever as well. I get itchy ears. I don't know if that's a hay fever allergic symptom. I have tried to ask my ENT husband, who is an ENT surgeon and knows a little bit more about allergy than I do. Well, I say he does, and I'm sure that he thinks he does too. But I have been told that if you've got itchy ears, especially during this time of the year, it is down to pollen. And the symptoms can vary from person to person. So the thing is that when you've got a combination or one or more of these symptoms, it is very important to treat the cause. But I also believe in two-tiered treatment as well. Some people can have very less common symptoms, and that is a lack of smell. Some people can suffer from face pain because their sinuses become blocked. Some people can sweat because of the amount of histamine that's being released as a result of this allergy to pollen. And others can have a headache. There are some that will also get asthma symptoms, which is seasonal asthma. No, not in the winter, but in the summer, as a result of the high pollen count as well. And they can suffer from breathlessness and wheezing symptoms. And people who already have asthma may get worsening symptoms. So symptoms can sometimes be so bad that they can affect sleep, and they may interfere with school and examinations or interfere with work. Hay fever and other seasonal allergies may also be associated with something known as an oral allergy syndrome. So like we said before, how long do symptoms of hay fever last? They usually last for the length of the pollen season. If you are incredibly unlucky, like there are a few handful of patients that I know, you will be allergic to every single bit of pollen that comes off either during grass pollen season, rapeseed season, tree pollen season as well, all the way through to when rapeseed is being harvested. And actually, we found that a lot of people are also allergic to the fungus that grows on the stalks of the rapeseed, the aspergillus fungus, which makes breathing more difficult, especially if you've got a background of asthma, and you can become allergic to that as well. Now, pollen levels change depending upon the weather. on your geographical location and many other things. So symptoms can flare up and they improve at different points during the season. Many people find that their hay fever symptoms get better as they get older. And there was a study that actually took place amongst American university students and found that amongst people who had hay fever in their first year at university, over half of those students found that their hay fever symptoms had improved 23 years later. And then 20% of those students that originally had hay fever symptoms had no symptoms at all. So there's a lot of desensitization that takes place with allergic symptoms too. And with a lot of other allergies, if you're allergic to hay fever in your younger life, growing up, you may grow out of it. And allergies are very funny things. And whenever anybody talks to me about, oh, I never used to be allergic to strawberries, and now all of a sudden I've noticed that I've started to get lip swelling and wheals every time I eat strawberries. And I always say to all of my patients that allergies are incredibly funny things. So it's very important to understand that you might not be allergic to something, and then you will become allergic to it later on. And I remember very much that I used to love prawns. And when I was expecting our first child, I remember going into a restaurant and ordering prawns because I absolutely loved them. And my goodness, my face started swelling up and it came out dotted in little wheals, which were an allergic rash, an allergic urticaria. And that was when I was found to be allergic. Now, whether my pregnancy had caused a hypersensitivity reaction to the prawns, I don't know. But as soon as I gave birth and I started eating prawns again, I was absolutely fine. I'm not saying, however, that you should try foods that you are allergic to, because do remember, we have seen very many cases where children, for example, are allergic to nuts. They've got an EpiPen, and then if they go anywhere near nuts or there's anybody within their vicinity that eats nuts, it can set off an allergic reaction to them. Do not eat something if you have an established allergy towards it. Just don't do it unless advised by a consultant whose care you are under, that can then implement that desensitization process. I cannot reiterate and stress that strongly enough. Okay. Now, hay fever is incredibly common. It affects about 1 in 5 people in the UK. But there is some studies and literature that says that it can affect almost half the population. And it usually starts in children and teenagers too, and it often gets better with age. Some people can continue to get it throughout their life. And like I said, allergies are very funny things. So it can also develop for the first time in adulthood when you've never been allergic to anything in your life. Some people have asked me if hay fever is genetic. Well, I think that's a really good question. And because the reasons why people develop hay fever are very complicated and not fully understood, it's a combination of things in the environment, like exposure to allergens and genetics. Hay fever does tend to run in families. So if you've got my mum used to suffer from hay fever. I used to suffer from it until I started to take an antihistamine every day throughout the year. And I have a daughter who suffers from hay fever as well. But the interesting thing to note is that if you have a child who's got asthma or eczema, they are more likely to have allergic tendency and thus also suffer from hay fever too. And through scientific research, it has been seen that different genes are linked with an increased risk of hay fever and other conditions as well. It's likely that some people inherit a set of genes which make them more likely to develop hay fever, but that something else needs to happen, an environmental trigger too, for them to develop the condition. So, as we said, those symptoms then become slowly apparent too. And how would we want to help hay fever? That's the thing, because I always, whenever I deliver these shows, I always end up rushing through the treatment. I think it's so important to talk a little bit about how we treat it. And if you've just joined in, this is the Body, Health and Mind Show, 106.2 FM on Salam Radio, 106.2 FM. And I'd love you to call in on 01733 602 133, or you can text and have a conversation with me on 074 1119 1052. And you can comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, X, or Twitch. So please do bring your questions on board. We have a shortened show today because we have the Maghrib Azan, which we're going to be approaching at 20:54. So whatever information I give you before then, I'm hoping that I can get in time. And when we talk about how to help hay fever, it's easier said than done. And the first piece of advice that I'm going to give, many of you won't be happy with, and that is that, unfortunately, yes, it's impossible to avoid hay fever completely, but you can do so by avoiding pollen. And the best way to avoid pollen, if you reduce your exposure to pollen, and how would you do that? You would stay indoors as much as possible and keep windows and doors shut. Now, I know the first thing that many of you are going to say is, how do we do that? Avoid cutting your grass. Shower and wash your hair after being outdoors, especially after going to the countryside. Wear wraparound sunglasses when you are out. Keep your car windows closed and consider buying a pollen filter for the air vents in your car. And they should be changed at every service. And the other thing that you need to do is, I always say, use some saline solution to douche your nose before you use a nasal spray. You should point the nasal spray upwards and outwards in each nostril and spray. Smear some Vaseline inside the nostrils. Smear some Vaseline on your eyelashes, and that will trap the pollen. Take an antihistamine, mostly at night. And honestly, I swear by it. There is some evidence to substantiate if you have locally produced honey, that those area bees use that area pollen to make. That is also wonderful at treating a pollen allergy. I've just been informed by my wonderful station manager that we actually only have 3 minutes. So I'm just wondering what time we finish. So we've got 2 minutes now to finish, which means that I close the show at 20:50 because of the Maghrib Azan. And that's okay, because what I want you to do is to concentrate on how you can effectively remove pollen from your home. Try not to fiddle around too much with dust that can make a hay fever allergy worse. Remember, morning, night, douche your nose with lukewarm saline water, and gargle with it as well, so you're washing away all of these pollen microscopic particles. Again, use an over-the-counter steroid nasal spray, which is always very good. Use some eye drops called sodium chromoglycate, which are also very good as well. Do not itch your eye or scratch your eye, because what that can do is it can cause an infection with microabrasions. We don't want any infections and we don't want any tears. And if you do feel that your eyes are becoming excessively itchy, sometimes applying a cold compress can alleviate the itch for a little while. So have a look at that. Take your antihistamine. Now, there are a number of antihistamines you can buy over the counter. Do think about if you're pregnant and breastfeeding. During breastfeeding, a lot of the antihistamines aren't advised, but when you're pregnant, do check with your doctor if you can take a certain antihistamine. And if all else fails, consult your GP. Now, it's been wonderful to be with you all today. I will be back, inshallah, week after next with another show.
You're listening to
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam Radio, and it's now